Hello and welcome to yet another episode of the God is a Geek Retrocast. I'm your host Lee Garbett, and joining me is my co-host Robin Parker.
Hey.
And we are playing an infamous game, I think. Mainly infamous due to its difficulty, I'm sure. And that is Battletoads.
Yeah, the game which Rare made their name with. Obviously, Rare, who went on to probably bigger and better things with Banjo-Kazooie and GoldenEye and such, and now, obviously, they're the Kinect bigwigs. This was what really put them on the map.
Yeah, it's easy to forget how prolific Rare were, even before before this game. I mean, obviously they were well known for writing games as Ultimate Play the Game for the likes of the ZX Spectrum, and then they found themselves being one of the few companies that were working closely with Nintendo on the Nintendo Entertainment System, and they'd released a few games before this game on the NES, such as Slalom and Solar Jetman, and I think they did a couple of wrestling games as well, for the WWF games on the NES, and then it came to Battletoads.
Yeah, Battletoads, because it was kind of these unique characters. It's kind of what the game which really became synonymous with Rare. Obviously, they were a bit of a cash-in on the whole sort of Teenage Mutant Turtle craze at the time, trying to get a slice of that market. But they did have their own character of their own.
True. I mean, it's easy to forget how many clones of the Ninja Turtles there were throughout the early 90s. I mean, and many of them, of course, had their own games. There were the likes of the Bike-O-Mites from Mars, the Stone Protectors, I vaguely remember. I think they did a Toxic Crusaders TV show, which...
Oh, yeah.
Lots of kind of things like that with a team of crime fighters. But, some did well, and others, like Battletoads, kind of disappeared very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I think they even did have maybe a pilot for a cartoon series, or...
They did. We mentioned during the Bubsy episode that there was a pilot for that show, and in that same around that same time in America, they also showed a pilot for the Battletoads cartoon, which wasn't that great. I mean, it had a pretty terrible theme tune, and it was something. It was something that Rare wanted to create as more of a multimedia experience. I mean, as well as the cartoon and the game, they were working on toys. Now, these toys did actually go as far as they actually made the moulds for to make these action figures. But eventually, that was scrapped, and these moulds were bought by some Hong Kong toy company, and they actually ended up releasing figures based on these moulds, although they weren't labelled as Battletoads. I think it was Space in big letters, I think it was, and then but if you look on the internet, they're around somewhere. Maybe I'll try and find a picture to put in this in our little sidebar for you.
That'd be very interesting to see.
But yeah, I mean, obviously, the Battletoads were in a couple of games. I mean, there was this game on the NES. There was Battletoads and Double Dragon, and I think there was a Super NES version of Battletoads as well.
Yep, so definitely with Super Battletoads as well, which was equally as frustrating and difficult as this game.
Yeah, and there was an arcade version as well, which was a bit of a different game, quite similar to Super Battletoads in Battle Maniacs, but I don't think it was released. It might not have made it out there other than a playable beta version, I think.
The strange thing you notice when we watch the video through for this NES version of Battletoad, a lot of the levels of the SNES version seem to rather be retreads of the levels in this game. There was definitely a level where you descended on a rope in the SNES version. We'll probably see soon the bike. The version where you're on the back of a bike. I mean, the level on the back of a bike, that was also done on the SNES version. It almost seems like a remake rather than a sequel.
Yeah, I think that's actually what it was. I think it was more of a remixed version of the NES game. Obviously better graphics. But this game was released in, I think, 1991, which is kind of where the NES begun to, near the end of its life. I mean, when Super Mario 3 came out, I mean, that came out in Japan in about 88, 89. So after that, 1991 was when the Super NES was starting to get onto the scene. So this was quite a relatively late NES game, and it looks pretty good considering.
Yeah, I think the thing is, it's both fondly remembered and sort of people remember it for the wrong reasons too, because it was well animated. The art was pretty good. There was a lot of interesting design choices. It's just there were a lot of frustrating, really difficult parts in the game, which some people just never really managed to get very far through it because of that. So they probably couldn't enjoy all the good points because they were too busy getting stuck on really irritating, horrible parts.
Yeah, I mean, I think Rare as a studio definitely came from the school of video game design where things were probably a bit too difficult, especially for the market that these games were usually intended for as well. But yeah, it's definitely some absolutely bastard hard moments that are a bit unnecessary.
Yeah, and being aimed at the sort of teenage turtle crowd, you'd think maybe they would have gone a bit easier on the fans, but no, definitely didn't.
No. I mean, some of these levels can get a bit long, especially this one. It's one, and of course, if you die too much and you find yourself back at the start of the level, which is always frustrating.
Yeah, these enemies are getting somewhat repetitive, considering it's just the same one level. There's maybe needed a bit more variety in there.
Definitely.
Of course, you can. It does get a bit more interesting when you play it with a second player, but then going back to what you said about Rare being very much from the old school of game design, you can actually hurt your partner in 2-player modes. So most of the time you end up either kicking your partner over the edge of a cliff by mistake or taking off that last piece of energy which your partner is clinging onto. You kick them by mistake and they lose that. And then they have to come back to life. They have to steal one of your lives. It's that really frustrating 2-player mode.
And then there's the classic, picking up health bonuses if you're full on health, and while the other person's nearly dying.
Yeah, there's a lot of little design choices like that definitely don't promote the 2-player mode very well. But it probably still was more fun in 2-player if you managed to sort of work out a system where the two of you stayed away from each other.
Yeah, communication was key, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
So for some reason there are random space invaders that are stealing our life, so we have to go and hit them to get it back.
Quite an interesting little idea.
Quite surreal. It's a very cartoony game. I mean, even the sprites being so small, you can see as the as your chosen Battletoad kicks people and a giant foot appears, or punch him with a giant fist. It's very cartoony, which is great.
Yeah, I think one of the Battletoads, the more powerful ones, I think when you punch them, his fist turns into an anvil, perhaps as well. I think, and there's always little cut touches which are typically cartoon sort of Looney Tunes, Hanna-Barbera type things to do. So it's definitely sort of got paying homage to those sort of classics.
Definitely.
And you can see that you can see why they wanted to do a cartoon tie-in, because they obviously had aspirations towards cartooning to some extent. And here we see the start of the much maligned sort of hoverbike levels.
Yeah, you have no idea how many attempts this area took me. It's incredibly frustrating. It is one of the most horrible sections of any game, just because it expects so much from you at such an early stage of the game.
Yep, it's these little walls will appear with maybe only a second or split second notice, and you have to move out of the way, otherwise you get knocked flying off your bike. And it must be said there was an almost identical level on the SNES game, which was just as annoying, if not even more annoying, because I think the SNES could actually handle you going that little bit faster.
Yeah, it was definitely harder.
So it was even harder to keep up with what was going on. And I think that was maybe even only the second or third level on the SNES game, the same as this one. Yeah. So you could end up never getting past the third stage.
No, and many people did just give up after playing the speed bikes.
It was that annoying.
And that's probably one of the things that killed the series off, was that it had this reputation for being so unfairly difficult. Yeah,
it's unforgiving, unrelentless. It's one of those games which just doesn't do you any favours. Doesn't say this isn't an arcade machine. It's not trying to drain you of your money. This is a game which they want you to play through, really want you to appreciate. But they don't do you any favours.
No, there's not really a carrot on a stick really to keep you going through, unless you're absolutely dedicated and insane like I was to try and get through this. But But I think that's just the way game design was. I mean, it was not necessarily well designed, but it was very unfair. And the fact that like if you got hit, it would take you back a fair way. Although this isn't so bad because at least this bit takes you to the start of the section.
Yeah, but as you see, you just as you're getting used to avoid doing the sort of slalom and avoiding these walls, they throw in a jump. And obviously, the first time you ever have to do a jump on this game, you don't know when you need to time that jump, so you're bound to lose at least one life on that.
It is just absolutely insane, and
it's just asking too much of a player
it really is. It's just unbelievably just difficult, but that's Battletoads in a nutshell, really.
That's what everyone remembers about the game.
It is. I mean, for some reason there have been like calls for them to bring the series back, and there was a Game Boy Advance version that was cancelled just before Rare were bought by Microsoft. A few years ago, there was a hoax rumor that it was coming back as well. Someone had set up a website and saying how great it was going to be. There's still calls even now to someone to do a new version of it. I know that the recent Double Dragon Neon, the developers of that, said if there was enough interest, maybe they could get a Double Dragon and Battletoads 2 piece of DLC for that. So I think for some reason it's fondly remembered. I
think it's one of those franchises which could do with staying in the past. I don't particularly want to see it again.
No, it's. I think if they ever brought this series back, it would have to be a very tongue-in-cheek kind of early 90s style presentation. I think not so difficult, obviously. Make the game a bit more easier. But I think in terms of aesthetics and in terms of things like that, they'd have to really ham up the sheer 90s-ness of it all, the cowabungas and the bodacious.
Yeah, it'd be interesting perhaps if they released the arcade version, so that so people could actually see what that was like, but release that on Xbox Live or something. But you'd want to. I don't know how. You don't know how difficult that would have been. You want something which is going to be a bit more playable, don't you? A bit more enjoyable.
Of course.
Less of a chore to play through.
I mean, I can't imagine getting this game for Christmas or birthday and persevering with it.
No, you wouldn't stick with it for long. I mean, even that last run through you had on the speeder bikes, you were doing tremendously well, all being told, and you still still come up against some wall which you just can't avoid. It's just something which just jumps out at you at the last second.
Certainly. So we're having another run of this. Maybe this will be the run that takes and I can finally rid us of the evil of this level. but I'm not hopeful, to be honest.
No, you still have nightmares about it. And there you
go. While we watch me struggle with yet another run of this horrific level, we're gonna say goodbye now. That's it for this week's God is a Geek Retrocast, and you can watch all of our past, present and future episodes via the Retrocast playlist on the God is a Geek YouTube channel, also via the God is a Geek TV channel on blip.tv and the God is a Geek TV podcast channel on iTunes. And of course, you can check out our website at www.godisageek.com, where you can also check out all of our other fine podcasts, videos, news, reviews, previews and features. If you'd like to be regularly updated about the show and want to chat with us about anything retro gaming or Retrocast related, you can also follow us on Twitter at the Retrocast, and we'd love to hear from you. Thank you very much for watching the God is a Geek Retrocast this week, and until next time, keep it retro.
Be sure to leave a comment below if you ever actually did clear this level.
Yes, we like to hear from somebody who actually maybe even finished the game, although that's probably asking a bit too much.
See you later, guys.
Okay, bye.